is our van.
And now, this is what it looks like. My name is Kale. I'm a filmmaker and a surfer. My girlfriend and I are packing up everything we own and moving into a van. And in this episode of The Van Conversion, we're taking our beautiful big Mercedes Sprinter that we just bought for a steal and packing it up with insulation, one of the most important parts of any van build. It's somewhat strangely satisfying to fill a hole. And we've really got to get cracking. It's obviously not going to work. Ow! This episode of The Van Conversion is brought to you by The Longevity Book, a photographic journey into the world's healthiest cultures. This book was born out of my travels into the world's blue zones, where people live on average 8 to 10 years longer than most. Use the code VANCONVERSION over at kalebrock.com and you'll get the hardcover version alongside any one of my other books for half price. You can also find info about the movie we created from this journey too. Check it out in the link in the description below. We just bought this Mercedes Sprinter long wheelbase high roof, and we need to have it ready to move into in
Like 2 months?
2 months' time.
2 months? 2.5 months? Something?
Because our lease is up.
Yeah, middle of winter too.
This could take a while.
So we need to measure the walls, ceiling and floor all separately so that we can decide what we want to insulate and what we don't. If we change our mind on the floor, then we know what we don't need. You had 300, 425, let's say 430 long.
Even though we're in Australia where obviously the weather's relatively good, I think we are still going to be exposed to the odd cold snap, cold day. So the idea is to insulate properly regardless, just for safety. But we're thinking of a few environmentally conscious materials.
So it's about 10 centimetres less width.
Okay, well that's not going to make a huge difference.
No.
So you're working out the square meterage.
Estimate, yeah. Very rough estimate.
I'm not the maths. I'm not maths.
0.4.
Knowing how much area you need to cover is super important when ordering your different layers of insulation. Essentially what we're doing with insulation is creating a buffer, a blanket, if you will, against outside temperatures. By preventing the transfer of air from outside the van to inside it, we can prevent cold or hot air coming in and maintain a steadier temperature inside. There is a ton of information online about which insulation is best and which is most environmentally friendly. Insulation can obviously be pretty toxic, so you've got to be careful about what you choose. Now for us, we took a real hard look at sheep's wool as a natural product. However, there were simply too many recommendations against it due to its lack of moisture resistance. We didn't want mold growing behind our walls after all. We decided on a foil reflective layer against the metal of the car, and I was still umming and ahhing about what to get next, but then we were offered a bunch of leftover polyester whilst perusing an insulation store. And rather than let it go to waste, we picked it up for next to nothing and brought it home. Polyester is basically straight out of any jacket you'd wear, and even though it's a plastic byproduct, we knew it'd be safe to handle at least, and were satisfied with it being trapped behind the reflective foil layers we plan to install. So basically we're going to put the foil reflector in all the cavities against the wall or the tin of the Sprinter. Then we're going to fill it up with polyester, the recycled reused polyester, and then we're going to probably put another layer of the reflective.
If we have enough.
If we have enough.
Kind of fill the gaps up with whatever we got.
you can sort of use consistent measurements across, but then obviously the van starts to curve off down the bottom, so we'll just have shaving a couple of centimeters off, or maybe even 1 centimeter off each time.
Need more. How much?
34.
34.
Yep. To the cavities, and then sort of...
Can this little bit go anywhere?
Yeah, just chop it and then keep it to the side. So there we go, we've filled up pretty much every single cavity in the entire van, and we're going to start putting the polyester over the top of it.
So we're using 75mm thick polyester. This is pretty good for the front half of the van, but as you get down further, the cavities decrease in depth. So we're just simply stripping off a little bit like that to make it thinner to fit those smaller cavities.
It's somewhat strangely satisfying to fill a hole. But it actually does hurt your fingers a little bit as you get it up through the gaps. Cool, look at that, just like little pillows lined up on the top, all the way around.
So because we got offcuts, we've just we're trying to see what sizes fit into what cavities and just use what there already is. It's surprisingly actually a lot of them have fit really well, which is great, but now we're starting to have to cut some and it's proving to be quite difficult. So
you can tear it one way.
You can tear it one way, but if you're going across you have to cut it, which is really hard. Otherwise you can just tear it like that, super easy.
I've been in this one spot like pressing in foam into this little cavity for like 20 minutes in this oddly satisfying little ritual. I'm tired. One thing that just really hurts are our fingers from just stuffing the polyester into little gaps and stuff, but it's looking pretty cool. Like the sound effects, the buffering was immediate. It sounds really nice in there and really cool. Actually, you could hardly even hear the buses and stuff coming past, which is nice, starting to give it a bit of a house feel. At this point, we were super glad to have kept our wall panelling because with enough reflective foil left over, we're going to put a final spaceship looking layer of it around the van to trap in any air. This will effectively seal off the insulation, creating a really nice and protected and consistent temperature here in the van. Okay, so we've just taped up the foil at the top here and we're going to cut around these ribs at the top of the car.
A lot easier to cut on a board.
Working? Cool. That seems to fit around it quite nice. So we've just sealed with reflective tape all these areas, basically capturing any sort of hot air or cold air that ends up making its way through the steel of the car and sitting in this area under here. So we're going to trap that in there with the tape.
This is the window driver's side. How do I use this?
How do you use a Stanley knife?
It's gonna break.
Now, even though our windows are tinted, we put down a layer of black cloth first, just to ensure that you can't see any silver from the foam board through each window. We glue them on with Fix-All and then allow it to dry while we give this roof a crack. It's not going to be easy. That's obviously not going to work. So we kind of knew that was a little bit of a long shot. We're going to have to sort this out and go and find some battens to prop up the pieces. Cool, so I've rounded off the edges with the Stanley knife, just sort of chipped away at it until it looks as flush as possible. We do have a little gap here just because of this overall slant of the window itself, but we're going to add some Sikaflex dots in and then pressure this against it until it sticks. What you got?
Spray foam. Gotta shake a lot.
So this is essentially filling up the gaps in the insulation that we physically are very incapable of filling unless we had an absolute perfect cut.
I don't really know how much to do. Haven't done it before. But
Keeping in mind that it expands, yeah.
and you can do another layer after as well.
We were a little bit worried about using spray foam just environmentally and for our own health and well-being as well, but we just figured that this was going to be the safest bet when it came to filling up those gaps in the insulation and really making it work as effectively as possible. But we didn't do the whole van spray foam because I thought that was a little bit lazy and a little bit unconscious perhaps. So yeah, doing the best we can in that respect. So our back windows are quite awkward in terms of their shape. This is the shape of the firemax that we are putting on there, but it is actually a mirror opposite on the other side. So at least now that I've got the right shape, I can use it as a template to trace it out on this one here. Where? Where?
Look at the
Is that
camera.
my head?
Can you see it?
No? Oh! Get it off! Oh! It's gonna be all sticky.
If you get it while it's wet, it's okay. It takes half an hour to set.
Oh.
Yeah, let me spray your hair.
With what?
Water.
Okay. Ow! Ow! Ow!
Feel a bit more comfortable sleeping right next to a wall as opposed to a window with curtain.
Yeah. Much better.
And we'll keep this one open so that if we do want some sunlight in our bedroom area, we can.
We frame it?
We'll frame it. Yeah.
Frame it will look cool. So we're sacrificing 1, 2, 3, 4, and then sort of like half of this one behind the cupboards. We probably didn't realise just what a massive job insulation is on the van. It definitely takes a serious amount of time and effort, especially if you're doing it yourself. Yeah, It's been a big job. Yeah. Watch your fingers. So we are putting the firemax boards on the roof. We've already done 2, but importantly we need to strut them up for about 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours, to ensure that they actually stick, because the spray adhesive that we're using is not that great. So we're also adding some liquid nails or Sikaflex to the bottom of the board so that it actually sticks. What we've done is sort of spread the distribution there at the top so that we don't actually damage the board, and then just really jammed them in tight at the bottom. To an extent, there's been a few sounds that have crushed and bent the board to match the natural curve of the roof. So it looks pretty good, and luckily we've actually got some screws from the roof rack, which are almost acting like pinpoints for the board to at least grip to initially, so it does hold them in place a little bit. Let's do the other one. Jungle gym. Do you love it?
I'm loving it so far. Look at
This is making sounds.
Well, it's just creaking into it. Okay, so insulation pretty much done. Main things that we have to do: cut into the side of the car to put in the hot water heater and the gas canister. We need to cut into the roof again over here and put in 2 skylights, one above the shower, one in the middle of the van, to offer some ventilation and some light. I think those are the main things, and then of course we move into flooring, cabinetry, and all the big stuff. Solar is getting put in this week, I think. These are major steps, major potential hurdles that could make or break this whole operation right now. And the time's ticking down. It is getting pretty tight in terms of how, in terms of actually having a clean changeover between our lease ending and this being ready. I don't know if we're going to get there or not. On the next episode of the van conversion, we're putting in our solar. We spared no expense, but still ran into some problems. We basically have not had a working solar system for about 3 months now, and I'm just over it. And some more problems.
Basically just kind of wired the whole system incorrectly. It's just a mess.
We'll see you there. This episode of the van conversion is brought to you by The Longevity Book, a photographic journey into the world's healthiest cultures. This book was born out of my travels into the world's blue zones, where people live on average 8 to 10 years longer than most. Use the code VANCONVERSION over at kalebrock.com and you'll get the hardcover version alongside any one of my other books for half price. You can also find info about the movie we created from this journey too. Check it out in the link in the description below.